My name's Joe Woodham from Torii. Welcome to our blog series, All Things Design. Today I'm joined by Riparides Head of Design, Simone Attanasio. Please tell me I said that right, Simon.
Kind of. Well,
Kind of. Good. Simon, you've got an incredible background working with some great startups here in Melbourne, like 99 Designs, Redbubble, and most recently, where you are at the moment, Riparide, who offer unique stays and experiences around Australia. Must be like the prime time to be a business in that space, considering everyone's traveling around Australia. But as a design thinker, Simone, you've started something very recently called Therapy for Designers, a platform that will help young designers learn and develop their leadership experiences. So, Simon, thank you very much for joining me today. How are you?
thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm good. A bit chilly here in Melbourne, but yeah, still good. Yeah.
I've heard it's terrible. It got down to like, what, 5 degrees or something the other day?
It's, I think, good 5, 6, kind of crisp weather. I don't mind it, but yeah, still a bit cold. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm not missing Melbourne's weather at all. So nice. But let's just jump straight into it. Keen to hear a bit more about your journey as a designer.
But usually it's a question that I ask, a fair bit in my career. And I usually try to say, well, when I started, once upon a time, when iPhone wasn't a thing, there was no iPhone, there was no Spotify. I do remember that time that the iPhone launched and a couple of colleagues ran to the stores like, where are you going? It's like, I got these new things. I was like, oh, okay, great. But basically, I'll start to share my story thinking about this is long time ago, high school, when I realized I'm pretty good at technology and doing things with code and stuff, but also a big creative mindset as well. So how do I combine these two things together? And that time there was no web design, wasn't a career yet. It was just like the beginning. We talk about 2001, 2. So there was nothing that in Italy was offering any like school or university or courses. The only thing available was something like animation, kind of like illustration school, but they had this new innovative like course of web design. I was like, well, I'll join that one. And I spent 2 years designing and studying that part. And then before I realized that the course was finished, I joined this company in Florence, in Italy. And it was a really big company. I was like, oh, God, what's going on here? This is like huge. And I don't know if you remember the ringtones. We used to buy ringtones through your phone. And basically I was working that like industry, that designing landing pages to sell ringtones across the world, from Brazil to all Europe and Australia, which I think Crazy Frog was a big hit at that time. And then I moved through like that, within that company was really big. We started working like, everyone, we used to be web designers. Then at some point, everyone became UI designers. And I was in a team of UI designers, which was really cool. And we're working, Scrum, no Scrum. It was a really exciting moment at that time. And I moved across agencies and, in Europe and in Italy. I worked with a couple of startups in America, which was amazing. I spent 2 months in Phoenix working with 2 startups and understanding the experience, so the landscape of startups over there, which was crazy. Coming from Italy, go to Phoenix for a bit, and I was like, there's so much money and so much support for students. I went to this building that was just for students, literally an entire building, and I was very surprised because every single person that was there was like, oh, what are you here? We had this idea, we pitched it, and university said, yes, this is the money, go ahead and build it. I was like, this is amazing, crazy. And then decided to move to Australia when I found a lot of different opportunities, to be honest. And as you say, move across different companies here and then ended up in Riparide almost 2 years ago.
How's it been for the last 2 years? Because obviously understanding what Riparide do, it's kind of like the right time, right place for Australian adventures, really. So how's the business gone over the last couple of years, and how's it been from, I guess, leading the design there?
I think the travel industry has been affected quite a lot in the last 2 years. I think we definitely ride. We've been working on that wave of coming out of the lockdowns, right? Of course, lockdown wasn't good for us, but like coming out of that, have like a lot of good waves of, people want to reconnect with nature, people want to reconnect with travel, which really help us to stabilize in some way our growth. From a design point of view, Riparide 2 years ago didn't have any design function, so my role still is to create a function within the company, which is like create method, processes, developing the team, and also working across the company overall. And so yeah, I think it's a balance to understand how we work with. We have 3 different type of audiences, right? We got the storytellers, which create the content for Riparide. We got the hosts who have the property, and ultimately the travelers who actually go and experience those adventures. And to add to that complexity, now we are overseas. We are in America. We launched in New Zealand beginning of Jan, and 2 weeks ago we launched in America, Washington State.
Oh, exciting!
So that's going to be an interesting, like, especially from a research point of view. I've been doing a bit of research and talking with locals to understand the landscape, the desire, what kind of mindset people have there in terms of traveling, which is very different from the Australian way. And even visually, I've been looking at the type of landscape adventures you can do over there, and then the type of colors you can think about. If in this case Washington State, it's kind of like they call it the Emerald City, so those green and blue, but in the last 3-4 months has been like cold weather, so you got this snowy kind of like colors and brown, versus like Australia now is going to the mode, but summer was like those pink, those sandy colors. So there's from a design point of view, you look at the research side, so the intent inside, and like analyze that part, but also how that will affect your experience within the actual site.
Yeah. Okay, it kind of leads me on to the next question. What inspired you to move into leadership? And you could probably circle back to what you were just talking about, what you enjoy about it.
I think so. I had a really big reflection years ago, and there's a part of me that's natural leader outside the work. It's something silly, but like in a group of people, it's like, where should we go for dinner? It's like, I'll lead the way, right? Back in the days when I used to play soccer, I didn't ask to become a captain of the team, but like they keep putting me as the captain. But then realizing in the last few years, when I'm looking at the leadership side and how I ended up in that role, I think it was my desire to help others and my desire to do the right things or do the good things, not only for myself, but people next to me, junior designers or other peers as well. And I think desire to actually let push or help the company to grow in a certain direction and share my opinion, my thinking. So it's kind of like it's a mix of internal reflection, but also like how I can help others ultimately.
And going into an organization like Riparide now, where you're essentially setting up the design, what's the most enjoyable part as a design leader, taking on that responsibility?
I think in a startup world environment, you get to do a lot of things. I really enjoy bringing those, which is connected to the leadership, the coaching part, right? Bringing those new methods or new way of thinking to others, right? Be running like workshop around design thinking, or even just showing how to use Figma to a social media manager, or collaborating with others in actually showing how to use specific tools or think differently, right? So become the person that it's devil's advocate and asking the right, not the right question, but the annoying question, like, is this what we need to focus on? Is this a priority or not? So I think it's in this context of startup, you get to do a lot of things, and the fun part is make sure that other people start getting into or learning new processes and methods that you experience in the past and you found beneficial for yourself. And I think the best part when you deliver this information and you do a couple of workshops and people get the question, what the hell is this? But then they see the value, and then after 2 months they're doing the same things with others. They bring that knowledge across, and I think it's very, very satisfaction.
You mentioned you started your career, obviously in large organizations. You're recently at Redbubble, which is, I guess, a well-funded or profitable, larger startup now. It's going to a smaller company like Riparide. Like, what are the challenges around implementing design thinking, or like if you're dealing with stakeholders or the owners, or what's the challenges there in terms of getting them to understand the importance of what you do on a day-to-day basis, with like now the expansion to Washington, the research and understanding the colors, or understanding the people and understanding how you can go to market?
I think the key thing I learned, and I work for startups, also big organization, is bringing people on a journey with you. And in some cases, I think in the startup world, probably over-communicate. It's the key thing, right? Because you can do a lot of things, but if people know what you're doing, know the reason you're doing, and sharing your rationale, that basically there's no point. So it's and also people that there's usually an emotional resistance where you want to change things and try things that people haven't tried before. So how do you kind of bridge the gap between that start and end, which is again emotional resistance of person because they never done this before. I don't know if it's going to work or not. So on how you do it, just literally you need to bring them along the journey, hold hands and showing how things can be done differently. And I mean, in my case, holding the design flag and say, we need to try this one. We need to think about the vision, how we set the vision, and bring, of course, to like leverage data and leverage what we can find from a design point of view. But ultimately, be the voice of the user, be the voice of the design across the company. And sometimes do not forget that you are the designer. You hold that flag, and then you need to make sure that things are done a certain way. There's also the other part, which is like, don't get attached too much to your thinking and try to listen to others as well. Because design, within organization, and even these days, quite recognized as, again, it's the visual side, but not the thinking side. And I think there's the shift I've been trying for, an organizational event is how to help people to think differently, how design can actually help their work, even if they're in sales, for instance. There's so much stuff that design can bring. And it's from a think differently, apply design thinking process to another, context that's not necessarily like design space or experience space. And if I reflect, like, how do I know if that's successful? But again, people start doing like copying what you're doing or try to emulate what you're doing, and ask how that went, like looking at feedback and how we can actually improve within your own company and with the people around you. So, make sure you share after all the workshops you've done, on the things you delivered, and see the sentiment to people. And I even come back, I did a couple of times this year, and even Redbubble, like asking, what feedback do you have? How do we go, right? Even after 2, 3, 4 sessions, even if it was like last week, it was like a month before. So, and I think that's important because, again, bring them on journey. But if they don't remember, right, well, it's no point. You need to actually poke, make sure that you're present with them.
Yeah. So as a designer or even a design leader, is there any piece of advice that you've had, if it was the start of your career or if it's more recently, that's kind of helped shape you as a leader or as a designer?
I've been thinking about this question. I think you sent me this question. I was thinking about I'm reflecting on the 2 points. I remember, so work amongst like in different industries, right? Marketplaces of art and industry, travel, domain, hosting, a lot of things. And extra things that was probably less product that I did was working within advertising company, that's agency, which had that UX department, which I was leading. And I was working with this creative director, and she really helped me to see things outside the square. As a product designer, we tend to actually fall into a square and try to bind to the rules. But in a creative world, advertising, you need to actually see things very on the other side, very differently, and try to push the boundaries. Even though creativity, things that don't exist, right? See, I think that suggestion, the advice to me to push boundaries, go outside, don't do things like others. Just try to do things differently. And I'm a big fan of the lateral thinking. Things can be done differently. It's not always 1, 2, 3, 4. It can be like 3, 4, 2, 1, right? And that really helped me to set the boundaries, see outside the boundaries for myself, also to coach that to others. Things can be done differently, or the common question you ask, what would you do differently? And I think it's a really good point of reflection for every designer when they design something, or they've designed something, and think about how we can actually do things differently. And the other point was the advice I got, it's from listening from others, right? Receiving feedback, something that sometimes you didn't recognize or you weren't able to actually see yourself, but others saw that. And that's a key thing for, I think, for personal development, receiving feedback from others. And in one case specifically, one of my ex-colleagues shared a feedback, and it was about, let Simone, go wild, and he will do amazingly, right? Let it have freedom to create, which connects with what I was saying before about go outside the boundaries. So I think go outside the boundaries and listen from others, keep receiving feedback. Because even at a leadership level, you don't have the answer, right? You don't know everything. So make sure that you listen from others and to understand the ways you can improve. And I think at some point, I can tell you, I can say, I would like to improve this and this and this for myself. What others are thinking? What do they think? Maybe there's something I can't see or haven't noticed that I should actually get better at. So it's very important for me to do this constant loop. Usually I do a 360 feedback from my peers every year. And that's been very beneficial for me.
Interesting. I actually want to circle back to your first point of, I guess, trying to do things differently. So rather than looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, go 3, 4, 2, 1. Talk me through how you, what your standard process of looking at a problem and trying to put a different way of thinking on it. How do you go about that to give yourself time and give yourself the freedom of thought to be able to do that?
I think you ask the innovation question, what if, right? If I look at a specific problem, or even from a design point of view, you look at specific solutions, what if we don't have this specific function available? You put yourself some constraints, or that constraints actually become a way to think stuff differently. In a way, in telling how to scale, a solutions. What if we have 2 million users tomorrow using this, right? And not 200,000. Tim, how are we going to do it? Does it imply that we need to do things differently? And again, maybe you can strip down the things completely, redesign, and look at, I call it parallel platforms. They're not the competitors, but they're completely in another space that might help you to think differently. Sometimes it's looking at the real world, design and web design and everything started from industrial design, actual real tangible things. Can you picture what you're designing? What's equivalent in the real world? How that defines, the things you're designing. I usually use the example of a door and the affordance of a door. If you look at the door, affordance means that it's the how simple you understand how to use an object without an instruction, right? It's is this affordable as much as the door or as a chair? You look at the chair, you know how to see it. You have to learn anything, right? So does it help you to see what you actually try to solve, right? That's what you're designing. Does it help to actually, use a specific feature, use a specific design that reflect what could be in the real world? So use a lot of comparison, and sometimes like step back what you're doing physically. I use like illustration sometimes to just draw and get like some inspiration in that way. Sometimes I look outside the window, maybe too many times to reflect. But it's the critical part is self-reflection, understanding like, a lot of designers tend to, let's say a lot, I don't want to generalize, but like this, fall in love with the solution, with the design, but not understanding the actual problem they try to solve. And that's what I try to coach a lot, is thinking what you actually try to solve, right? And then maybe the beautiful UI you create, it's fantastic, but what are the ways you can solve this, right? And that kind of brings back like the product thinking hat, which I think it's the thing we need to prompt designers, young designers, to learn a bit more, because you can fall in love with your design, everything's fantastic, but like maybe we don't need all this UI visual treatment. We just need one call to action, and it's black or white, and still does the job, still wins. So that applies the lateral thinkers, like, maybe I should start from like nothing, and then things can evolve, right?
Yeah. I like that. That was a good analogy of the door. Thank you for explaining, because I had no idea what you meant, but it makes perfect sense. I'm glad I know how to use a door and a seat.
There's a very funny scene in Family Guy where Peter looks at the chair and it's like, and then he literally jump on a chair, but like he's back and the chair breaks, and that's kind of like it's the opposite of what I'm saying, but like remind me that very funny.
All right. Well, moving on to this. So if you're a junior or a mid-level designer, what are the sorts of attributes or skills that you think make a great designer? So what are the things that people should be really focusing on improving or honing as a designer early in their career?
So there's a big part of the craft that you tend to learn straight away. And then when you're younger, you just, the craft, it's the basic things, right? Can you design something? Right? How good can you design? Don't know, but that can grow, right? Craft can always get better by using more tools, by using, practice more. But the things I think younger designers should focus on, and we are, as older, I mean, getting older, but older designers, I say, not more expert, I think older. And so it means we have just more experience. I don't think we are better than others. Is to focus on other soft skills. This is about like storytelling. So how important is to share your thinking, to share the reason why you design something a certain way. It's very key. A lot of designers come and talk to me, and it's like, but that thing didn't work, and they don't accept my ideas. And it's like, well, how did you share your ideas? How was it? Did you structure? Did you create like do you understand what are key things, key elements to share your ideas using some storytelling techniques? The other part is like listening. So listening from others, and listening means be an active listener. So try to understand from others that are not designers around you, engineers, product managers, right? And then be open to receive feedback from others and constructive feedback and opinion. I work with a lot of engineers, and the best part for me was when engineers understand design so well, they basically become an extra designer next to me. They would design things for me, which was great. So then how you do that? Just be curious, be listening to others, and don't close yourself in your design bubble. Yeah, you're a designer and surrounded by other 4 engineers, but what do they think? What are the things they can think about related to your design problem, or the way you can tackle the actual visual and so forth. The other part is empathy. I think empathy not only in the team, but like with the users, which is a very common thing, but like try to understand the user side and again, connect with them and remove the bias towards like, my solution is beautiful and works fantastically. It does actually help the user, right? Let's go back to the one I was saying before. Maybe it's a black and white button that's there and works. And the last 2, what I mentioned before, product thinking. So is this really drives whatever you're designing or you're thinking it will help achieve a business outcome? Yes and no. And actually, how can you focus on that? Yeah, of course, you can look at desirability. What about viability of these things you're designing? And how can product thinking help you to define your research, define the things you want to, the solution you're putting together? And I think it's, again, understanding how to prioritize a certain work, understanding how to talk with the product manager, understanding even some of the key business drivers, right? Why does my company want to achieve certain things? How can I help? Because ultimately, what you design as designer will definitely help, but can you understand how? What's the impact? So a lot of the time when you interview designers, like they share a case study and they talk about this amazing feature they built and ask, do you know if this was what impact this feature or this new design kind of delivered? And let's say 50-50, 50% of the time people don't know. I was like, I don't know, it's not my thing, doesn't belong to me. 50% was like, actually 30% they say, yeah, more or less, and 20%, yes, this will happen, right? I would love to have the more than 50% of the designers responding, yes, we were doing this because we want to drive X percentage, X amount, and so forth. So really attached to the design to a product outcome. And last but not least, is a growth mindset. So what I was saying before around getting feedback and do self-reflection, I think it's key for your development as a designer, which kind of helps you to define your own growth mindset. So it's stop, reflect, what can you do better? How can you change? Self-reflection is like very, very important to self-development. And how you can do that, it's asking feedback and learn how to ask for feedback, learn how to give feedback, but also how to receive feedback. Feedback are not easy in general to be received, and because the majority of the case, person in front of you is not capable to deliver an effective feedback, and you tend to be defensive. So you need to actually learn how to actually massage that thing. But even just having the thinking, I need feedback, I want to learn how I can do things better, where can I improve? I think it's a key for a younger designer to actually see the progression.
It's a really important point. Like, you wouldn't build a product without asking your users how they interact with it or why they're using it. So I guess doing anything in life, if you're getting feedback from the people around you who deal with you on a day-to-day basis, it's the best way to learn, rather than just continuing to do what you always do. So I think it's a very, very important point.
It's also like if you, let's say, design something from scratch, it doesn't exist, and you actually put a bet on everyone will use this, that's another type of research, that's another type of work. But if you work in a company where you already have your user base, you really need to empathize with them. And again, you want to empathize with the user who's going to use the product, but also with internal, your team members, stakeholders, and whatnot. There's a lot of like designers. Yeah, you need to deliver something that helps the users. Sometimes you need to design something that helps internal stakeholders and create that balance in between request and who does the job and who's in charge and whatnot. And one of the things I want to add is that as a designer, it's also you need to look at that creative satisfaction. So what I tend to coach young designers is, that this is it's not gonna go live. It's fantastic, but it will take too long. It's been deprioritized, and can you see your creative satisfaction out of here? Can you spend another 2 hours a day to actually make it like incredibly beautiful, incredibly, with all the interaction? Because ultimately you want that your own creative satisfaction. The amazing feature or experience you design was not going to get delivered fully 100%, but you still want to carry your creative satisfaction, because I believe it's kind of like an inner thing. And if you don't fulfill that creative satisfaction, over time you get annoyed, bored, you don't want to work in the same environment and so forth. So I think you need to feed that creative satisfaction as well.
I like it. That's a good point. Design space, there's been a lot happening in the last couple of years. I think it's an exciting space to be in at the moment. Is there anything that you see emerging in the space right now?
There's one thing I'm curious to learn more. It's how to design for this crypto and NFT world. Would be very interesting. I see jobs out there and they're asking about like, I've never seen before, so I'm like curious to understand how the hell that works. And, I'm thinking the other day I was thinking of, if I was in the space, who would I interview? And then I really need to learn a lot of things like jargon and language, and slang, the terminology, because it's very new. That's be training design as well, because designers never had to deal with this before, so it's a new thing. So it's a new industry. Yeah, old new. I think it's become a bit more mainstream. It's been for a while, but like now it's a bit more popularized. And the other thing, I think it's more like it's connected to what I was saying before, the risk that things get all the same. What I've seen over the years that younger designers just tend to like copy everything that's out there, and everything looks pretty much the same. A website, every app, it's the same card, the same title. It's just like it's a framework for everything. And I think you're going to reach a saturation, which probably already reached saturation point, when basically you don't know what you're looking at. So again, another exercise, if you design something, cover your logo, look at what you're doing. Is this your brand? Is this who you are? Can a customer user recognize this is your app or this is your experience? And try to push to bring them to younger designers, like just try to do things differently. The web is still, it's been around for a bit, and there are some standards, but standards that they, I think, to be called out and maybe change it. We evolve as humans and with technology and change behavior. Maybe things that wasn't working, for example, 3-4 years ago, is not working anymore. All this design system stuff, we need to systematize everything. Everything has to be the same. And then you basically look around, you got design system company A, B, they're all the same. And the design system companies, they actually deliver to you the same design system with just different colors. So basically it's the same thing. So I really wonder if we're going to reach a saturation point, and the risk that, younger designers just say, oh, this is how it's done, I'm just going to copy and paste. And actually, yeah, that's what I see that. And how do I see that? Just like browsing a lot, also when reviewing designer portfolio, you just see like I've done like any others, and you don't see that style. I remember when I'm beginning my career, and I was working with a lot of like creative people around me, and I remember this creative director or art product art director, whatever, he said, you really need to develop your own style. And I was looking for my style. So, and then I remember then after, I think it would be 4 or 5 years, I was designing a website, and people said, I can tell that's your style. Now, I haven't defined, I wasn't like a guideline, I was saying 1, 2, 3, but by doing that specific design, by adding the specific curve or imagery, colors, layout, shaping, people can tell that was my style. Now, I question if a younger designer or a designer chucks something on page, can you tell that that's your style, that's your design? I don't think you can tell, because everyone looks the same. So more than a trend, I see it's a trend and a risk I see happening, and it's been for a while. Sorry, I sound very negative, but like I would like to see things differently evolve, because again, that's what I'm.
It's an interesting one. Like I understand what you mean, but as a junior to mid, I guess half the time you're just trying to please and make sure that you're doing the right thing. So how do you get creative, and how do you, I guess, push the boundaries to put your stamp on things without taking too much of a risk, I guess? But I think that's what it is.
But there's 2 levels. I think there's you can satisfy whatever your manager and say it has to be done a certain way. But at the same time, we can educate leaders to help younger designers to actually do things differently, right? Now, of course, there's always the bias or the push of wanting to reach certain things. I'm more than a product. I've been talking about from a pure design perspective, the actual visual side of stuff. And I think creating a mindset, even within an organization, that things done differently can work. It's I think it's not easy, it's hard. And different cultures as well. worked with European, Italian company. I work in America and work in Australia. It's very different. There's a bit of conservative mindset in Australia compared to America. If it's someone has done in the past, great, we can do it as well. In America, am I there first? Yes, we're gonna do it. In Italy, it's half and half, and a bit of pizza as well. But yeah, it's a yeah. I think it's more a trend, as I say, it's a risk. And again, the common question that we probably can push to younger designers, like, what would you do differently again, right? So then maybe opens up a bit of reflection of how you can do things differently. Even like copying out the website, the apple.com and whatever, I can make sure that's up. My design looks exactly like that and put a different content. Like, even them, they're not, who says that the guru, right? Who says that the top number one? Yeah, but Apple works, you can question a lot of things. And I think that's what I would like for younger designers to see, like stimulate that thinking that things can change and can be done differently.
Yeah, it's good. Well, before we wrap it up,
Yeah.
Can you give a quick plug and tell me about a bit more about therapy for designers?
Well, therapy for designers is very new. I'm now in the process to form a mini team, which with the help of Millie and Benaz, it's getting there. What I would like to, the therapy for designer aims to actually help younger designers to create a growth mindset. So not looking at how can I do a better design or what tool should I use, but how can I grow from a mindset point of view. But the other side is I just need to bend, and I want to support from other peers who understands design, who have been in the same position. So we're looking at smaller groups of designers getting together, share the experience, and having facilitator that can help them to actually overcome specific situations. Very early days, we're working on framework, working on a lot of things. So nothing tangible probably is going to happen until maybe August. So yeah, a lot of things happening, but yeah, we'll take a bit of time.
I love the concept. I think it's a really good idea. I'd love to see it play out. So excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll see. I think it's I've been talking a lot with a lot of like leadership or design leaders across Melbourne to understand the landscape and start talking to younger designers as well. We might gonna look at pilot to get like the first 4 or 5 designers together and see how we actually test the prototype. Go back to design thinking. Like let's test and see how it goes and learn something fairly quick.
Yeah, very cool. Oh, Simon, it was very fun speaking to you today. I appreciate your time. So thank you very much once again. If anyone wants to reach out, is the best way just to connect via LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's correct. Simone Attanasio, you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right. Well, once again, appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks, Simon. See you later. Bye.